Hello, I'm Sergeant First Class Steve Morrison, and we're here today to talk about the training that we're doing with our retail store locations, gas stations, Walmarts, places like that. And the first thing that we talk about when we go in with the stores is the PPE that they're using and that they should be using as they're working with the general population. Also when they're bringing in products to the store before they stock them on the shelves. So we teach them about gloves and how to properly put the gloves on, and the fact that the non-porous surface of the gloves actually can help spread contaminant if we're not careful with that. So they need to be cognizant of the fact that once they've touched a surface that could possibly be contaminated, that they need to either decontaminate those gloves or replace the gloves. And then we go through the basic demonstration of how to remove the gloves after they've finished using them, which would be on the first glove that you remove, we're going to pinch the wrist and turn the glove inside out as it comes off of the hand. That glove they will ball up inside of the other hand that still has a glove on it. And then they're going to take their clean hand with the pinky and slide it underneath the cuff of the still dirty glove and strip it off, turning it inside out. And then of course they want to throw that away instead of just laying it around somewhere. The way we can prevent cross-contamination from the gloves. Also, should they choose to wear some type of respiratory protection, we always remind that there's a potential that the outside of the mask could have some contamination on it. So they need to treat it as such when they remove the respirator. So they want to have either a gloved hand to remove the respirator or to immediately wash or sanitize their hands after having removed the respirator. And they also want to make sure that they wash and sanitize before removing, so that when they're removing the straps from their head, they don't potentially contaminate their head. Then we talk about some safe work practices. One of those is maintaining social distancing. That's a subject we've all heard time and time again. And some ways that the stores are doing that is either placing a line on the floor or some X's that are 6 feet apart, and then putting up some signage to tell customers, hey, you need to stand on these places when you're standing in line. Make sure as you're roaming about the store picking up what you need that you're staying at least 6 feet away from other people. And also giving that 6-foot barrier between the person who's checking the customer out and the customer as they're standing at the desk. Next we talk about placing barriers when available. And most of the stores reacted very quickly. They've put up some plexiglass barriers between the store workers and the customer. And so most stores are doing a good job with that already, but if there are any that are out there that don't have these yet, that is a good protective measure for the employees and for the customers, so that there's no aerial transmission of COVID-19 virus. And then we want to talk about sanitizing frequently touched surfaces, things like door handles, gas pump handles, the touch pad on your credit card machine, the counter there at the checkout, and then your restrooms, high-touch surfaces such as the flushing handles, the doors, doorknobs, the knobs on the faucets inside the restroom, other things like that, that they want to sanitize those as frequently as possible. We're keeping the number of people inside of the stores down, so that kind of helps after a few customers have gone and left and you have a little break without having other customers in the store. It's a good time to go ahead and do that. That also helps with the PPE if they're wearing gloves, or even if they're not, as they're sanitizing those surfaces. It's also helping to sanitize the hands as they're doing that. So they can use either sanitizing wipes, they can use a sanitizing spray that they've either purchased commercially or made. They can use a mixture of bleach and water, which is a 1-to-10 ratio, or 1/3 cup of bleach to 1 gallon of water. And there's also some other recommendations from the CDC that they can use peroxide in a solution to help decontaminate as well. And we also talk about avoiding touching the face. And that's a very hard habit for most of us to break, because we're used to just, you have an itch or something and you just touch your face, or you want to fix your hair. But we encourage everyone as much as possible to avoid touching their face unless they have just finished washing their hands or sanitizing their hands, because that is the way we're going to transmit the virus into our body. It can either enter our body through our eyes, our nose, or our mouth. So if we're not putting our hands near our face to where we can transmit to those areas, we've already won most of the battle. And the rest of that is avoiding walking through a space where someone has recently sneezed or coughed. Studies have shown that droplets from aerosolized coughs or sneezes can hang out in the air for up to 3 minutes. So if you're walking through a space where someone has coughed or sneezed and they do have the COVID-19, there's a potential you could breathe that in either through your nose or your mouth, or it could go through your eyes and down through the tear ducts into your respiratory system and cause you to become infected that way. One of the best things a customer can do for the person working in the store is to hold up the items that they're wanting to check out, allow the worker to scan the barcode on that, and that way there's never a transmission of the item from the customer to the worker and back to the customer. The customer is only touching the products, the worker is only touching the scanner. And then we're advising for the workers if the customer decides that they want a bag, that the worker will hold the bag up, the customer will put the items inside the bag and then receive the bag from the employee. And that way we're preventing secondary contamination as much as possible. And then we recommend to the stores that they shouldn't expect customers to always know what to do. So a good way to mitigate that is to have signs placed in relevant areas to instruct the customers to do whatever it is we want them to do, whether it be to stand on the X as you're waiting in line, so that gives us our 6-foot social distancing space, or if it's out at the gas pumps and they've supplied some sanitizer that they can put on the gas pump to sanitize it before they use it, or to use a paper towel when they're handling the gas pump. Things like that some people just may not think to do. We can put a sign up and instruct them to do that. Hopefully they'll see the sign and hopefully they'll obey the instructions, but at least some people most definitely will. And then we want to make sure we wash and sanitize our hands and change gloves frequently. Again, just because we're wearing gloves doesn't mean we're particularly mitigating the transfer of the virus from one surface to the other. If we're not frequently sanitizing or changing the gloves, we just have contaminated gloves that we are touching several different objects, and each time we touch something new, we have potentially spread that virus. So again, as we're wearing gloves, we can use a sanitizing wipe, we can use hand sanitizer for the workers if they were to have a bucket or a pail with some bleach water in it. Anytime they touch a surface, they can wipe those gloves off and clean them, or they can dip their hands and sanitize the gloves that way, so that we make sure that we're not spreading contamination, or what we call in the CBRN world, secondary contamination. And we also tell them that they want to mop the floors whenever possible with a bleach solution. The floor in any given contaminated environment is generally one of the most contaminated spots in that environment, because people are sneezing or coughing, it's going out into the air and falling into the floor, and then people walk through it and they track it all over the place. And this CDC has also advised that that is definitely a way that this disease can be transmitted, is through footwear. So mopping the floors frequently and making sure that we're cleaning up any potential viral deposits that are on the ground, and then making sure that people also know that they should not go into their house wearing the footwear that they were wearing out in public. Take those off before you go into your home, and then sanitize them before you do bring them inside. And that can be done again with off-the-shelf sanitizer that will kill the COVID-19 virus, or using a bleach water solution or a hydrogen peroxide solution. There are many things out there that we can use to sanitize with. And then we also talk to stores about prohibiting self-serve food, including hot bars, cold bars, buffets, and things like that. So I realize for the civilian population out there, it may be frustrating that you go to your favorite convenience store and you're used to getting a hot dog off the roller system, or getting that hot cup of coffee yourself, or a soda out of the fountain. But they've stopped giving those services so that people aren't touching the cups or touching the service tongs or things like that. A lot of stores do have those items available. You have to ask for them at the counter, and the person working behind the counter will put on a pair of gloves. They'll prepare your item for you and then give it to you, and then you can check out. Some stores are doing that. Again, some stores are not. You just have to ask to see if those items are available. And then we talk about decontamination of products that are coming into the store. We either have deliveries off of trucks that are coming in to the back of the store, and they're bringing the products into the storeroom, or we also have people who are distributors that are bringing things directly into the store. And we have to keep in mind there's a possibility that there could be contamination on those products. So before we stock the items in the store, we want to make sure that we perform some type of decontamination. Particularly, this virus can last for 2 to 3 days on plastic surfaces or some metals, and up to 24 hours on cardboard. And that's the description of most of the containers that our products are coming into the stores. So if we do a simple wipe down of each of the containers before stocking those items in the store, that's a huge chunk of the fight in trying to combat this virus and mitigate that secondary contamination. So we're going to sanitize the packages before stocking them. Of course, after we sanitize them, we want to give them appropriate time, what we call a stay time. Let that decontaminant do its job on the surface of the packaging, allow it to dry before we stock those items. And of course, as we're stocking them, we want to protect ourselves. We're going to wear gloves, frequently sanitize the gloves, and or change gloves out as we're working.